Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, well out of my territory up here. Normally you'll find me behind the counter in the English market in Cork City. As you just heard, my name is Pat O'Connell and I also happen to be President of Cork Business Association. In case any of you are over-impressed by that title, I hold this position by default. They just couldn't find another victim. Cork Business Association was founded in 1957 and today represents just short of 200 members, the majority of which are located in the city centre, in fact, on the island in the city centre. Membership covers a wide sectoral base, including retail, hospitality, property, media, financial, and the service industry. Like the Irish National Flood Forum, we are a not-for-profit organisation. Unlike the INFF or INFF, we are not a national organisation, which, as I found out this morning, makes a hell of a difference when you're attending a meeting. In the past 140 years, Cork has had 292 flood events. It is prone to both fluvial and tidal flooding. So as a very proud Corkman, I am grateful to St. Patrick, or St. Finbar, excuse me, for founding Cork City. Not always sure, however, that the sat-nav that the man above gave him was calibrated quite correctly. Cork, or Corkig as Gaeilge, meaning bog. November 2009 saw one of the worst floods ever to hit Cork City. A flood of such a scale that the Red Cross listed it as in the World Disasters Report. Not of one of Cork's finest moments. If flood insurance was an issue for business in Cork City before 2009, it became pretty much the only issue after 2009. Flood defences were no longer on a wish list. They had shot right to the top of the critical list. The solution? Install robust flood defences. Problem solved, reinstate insurance, job done. Thus began Cork Business Association's engagement with the OPW. This has been ongoing and productive, and 2008 should see the beginning of the biggest flood defence scheme in the history of this state. Cost to the Irish taxpayer, 150 million. This following on from schemes in Clonmel, Fermoy, Mallow and Waterford. In fact, in the next 5 years, the Irish government expects to spend £500 million of taxpayers' your money on flood defences. Clonmel, Fermoy, Mallow and Waterford schemes, which were all built to the international standard of 1 in 100 flood risk, all have proved technically excellent and robust. The OPW's track record and proven technical competence and their ongoing engagement with the CBA and other stakeholders has convinced Cork Business that the impending scheme will be absolutely successful. Cork Business Association was made aware that in 2014 a memorandum of understanding was put in place between the insurance industry and the OPW to share data. So far, so good. Job done, you would expect. Not quite. Clonmel, Fermoy, Mallow, Waterford still doesn't have flood insurance reinstated. Those that do have excesses of 10, 15, up to 20,000 euro. Surely the insurance industry, an industry of such apparent high morals and ethics, if you were to believe some of their advertisements, are aware of a level of social responsibility in every business. That same level of social responsibility shown by their UK counterparts in reinsuring property and businesses following flood defence installation in the UK. Not so, in fact. We have heard, in fact, of insurance being withdrawn after the flood defences have been installed. Through our engagement with the INFF, we heard that demountables were the problem. The Irish Insurance Company Federation had an issue with their use and wouldn't reinstate flood insurance following the completion of any scheme with demountables. Last week, in front of the Defence or the Oireachtas Finance Committee, we were told that they now do accept that flood or demountables work. But before you break out the champagne, I'm afraid there's now another issue. We were told they now have an issue with the human element of flood demountables. This claim was made by Mr. Thompson, an executive of the Irish Federation of Insurance. Has anyone told Mr. Thompson that risk management is part of the insurance industry? Are they going to put up one demountable after the other to prevent us getting flood insurance back? I drove up here this morning from Cork. Didn't know the way, so I was keeping an eye on my sat-nav. Kept to the speed limit. Braked when I was supposed to brake. But I could have made a mistake, I'm human. Could have had an accident, but I've got insurance. So why, when flood defences are put in, can businesses not have insurance? Take heed, because vigilance and verification of the Irish insurance industry is urgently required. The warning signs are there for all to see. Talk of cartels, price fixing, raids by EU competition officials. Headline in the Sunday Times of the 2nd of July, insurance firms ordered not to lie. As I said, install flood defences, problem solved. Reinstate insurance, job done. Without insurance, the job just is not done. We as business owners, householders, farmers, continue to pay rates, property tax, inheritance tax. Yet homeowners, farmers, businesses are unable to raise loans or mortgages on their properties if they don't have flood insurance. Selling your property is nigh impossible unless the buyer has cash or you want to give your property away. Raising funds to invest, to renovate, expand your business is impossible unless there are personal guarantees. Only last week I spoke to somebody in Cork City who had just made their last repayment on a loan they borrowed after the 2009 flood. Money that could and should have been invested in that business to expand it, to improve it. And I must admit the thought entered my head, would that person have been economically better off walking away in 2009 and starting afresh? Many did. Many did in Cork, to the detriment of their street, their community and their area. The late Owen O'Callaghan, a very prominent and active member of Cork Business Association and one of our city's largest developers, said on many occasions that many retailers bypass Cork city centre because of the fact they were unable to get flood insurance. Many businesses have been able to repay loans or sell their properties. Fear is an incredible destructive emotion. Physical, psychological illness from anxiety and stress. Every time we have a heavy rainfall in Cork or a high tide, the fear is evident. The human as well as the economic cost has left many business owners broken or broke. Many buildings have become derelict, and whole areas and communities have highly visible signs of neglect. This scenario has replicated the length and breadth of this country. And we are not the only ones to recognise the serious lack of vigilance and verification of the insurance industry. The joint Oireachtas report of 2015, it is important to identify uninsured populations and sectors of the economy that are financially vulnerable and access the reasons why they lack insurance. Josephine Feely, flooding will impact on property tax valuations. It will also impact on property valuations, Josephine. We have seen many refusals, some of them stated in that Oireachtas report. If less than 500 metres from a river, your chance of insurance or flood insurance is about zilch, whether you're 500 metres up in the air or at river level. And little account has been given to the new defences. Mr. Downey, former chairperson of the Irish Claims Consultants Association, alleged that insurance companies retain part of agreed claim settlements incorrectly. The retention practice is not evident abroad. Mr. Downey also alleged that insurers have ignored the Consumer Protection Code by not advising homeowners who notify a claim of their right to retain their own representative. This was confirmed by the central bank. We also have claims of incidents of potentially unfair settlements, a lack of transparency by insurance companies retaining those claims or partial claims. We have Kildare County Council state that despite the council having delivered schemes, that insurance is still not available in that area. Figures released by the Irish Brokers Association, up to 50,000 householders have no flood insurance in this country. Mr. Thompson of the Irish Insurance Federation seemed unable to tell the Oireachtas Finance Committee how many of these were in flood areas. I could hazard a guess it's quite high, Mr. Thompson. As to how many have flood insurance, but with an access, seemed unable to answer that one too. At that Oireachtas Finance Committee meeting, Mr. Thompson also said that the memorandum of understanding between the OPW and Insurance Federation was working well. Well, the MOU might be working very well for you, Mr. Thompson, but it sure as hell ain't working for us. There is a well-founded suspicion that your members do not want to insure flood areas even after flood defences are in place, even though those defences have proved themselves to work and to be robust. That abdication of responsibility, Mr. Thompson, to the Irish taxpayer and your clients, I would suggest is truly reprehensible. The National Flood Strategy being delivered with taxpayers' money is bringing high standards of physical flood protection, but without commensurate changes in the availability of level of flood insurance cover, the job is not done. Societal and economic resilience will remain severely compromised for the foreseeable future. Whole areas and communities will remain blighted. Thank you for listening, and before I finish, I would like to thank the Irish National Flood Forum and their members for organising a movement, lobbying politicians and councils, OPW and others of influence. They have researched and challenged the insurance industry. They have questioned the veracity of so-called facts. They work extremely hard to make sure that the people in places like Mount Mellick will be remembered not just on Thursday, but all the time, until something is done to improve what is happening in this country. As President of Cork Business Association, I promise our continued and unwavering support to the INFF going forward. Thank you.